Roosevelt, and also on the outbound Dan Ryan at 63rd. That exit ramp continues to be closed with that crash. Tri-State northbound at the Eisenhower, the ramp from the northbound Tri-State to the outbound Eisenhower, a little sluggish this morning, and also on 80 eastbound, pretty heavy between Nettle School Road and Lispin. That's because of a crash in that area. That's traffic. I'm Paul Bodenloss on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast. In our AM 560 Weather Center, our AccuWeather meteorologist, Steve Williams.
Clouds and warm, breezy and a shower today. High 78. Cloudy, mild thunderstorm in parts of the area this evening. End of low at 60. Clouds and showers, breezy day tomorrow. The high 64. Plan with confidence this spring. Download the redesigned AccuWeather app today. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
62 at O'Hare. Next news at 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. And Nicholas Merriweather is a longtime professor of history, philosophy, religion at Shawnee State University in Ohio. And he made some news last week when the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in his favor with respect to pronoun usage. Shawnee State University, where he's taught for 25 years, including a class on the history of Christian thought, refused to use a pronoun that reflects a student's self-asserted gender identity. When he asked university officials about what role his own beliefs played and what he was allowed to say, he was told he must call students what they wish to be called, regardless of his convictions or views on the subject. Well, the court noted, by forbidding Merriweather from describing his views on gender identity, even in his syllabus, Shawnee State silenced a viewpoint that could have catalyzed a robust and insightful in-class discussion, and ruled that his case against Shawnee State can move forward. But I fear that is a temporary reprieve from the identitarian mobs in academia and in every other sector of American society today. For more on the subject of said identitarian mobs and the situation on campus, we're pleased to be joined by the founder of an organization called Speech First. She is Nicole Neily, and she's also the president of that organization. Nicole, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So how much encouragement should we take from the Professor Merriweather case and put that in the context of what's going on college campuses writ large with respect to free speech and free thought?
Yeah, no, it's a really great decision. It was really well written. And, it's interesting now because we used to hear on college campuses years ago about speech being violence. And then last summer, after all the protests, we heard this phrase, silence is violence. And so you weren't able even just to keep your mouth shut if you disagree with anybody. Now you have to actively parrot the talking points. And what this decision ended up saying is basically, you can't force people to do that. That's compelled speech. That's a First Amendment violation. Stop trying to do this to people. So it's really encouraging that at least the courts have recognized that. What I worry a little bit about is, culture lags. I read these reports, incidents that are filed at schools under their bias response teams, which is this creepy Orwellian kind of Stasi Germany thing. And I see students, when they report on each other, they tattletale, oftentimes anonymously, they're asking for punishment. And it's that, how do we change the hearts of men? That is kind of what worries me.
You and your organization sued your alma mater, among other schools, University of Illinois, over these bias response teams. We've talked a bit about them. I mean, they're ubiquitous now. I think there's something on the akin of 230. I think that was what Professor Bargosian over at Portland State told us when we spoke with him. 230 on college campuses around the country. And these are They are like secret police that set you up for star chamber proceedings at so many universities. So speak to that a little bit and how that legal action against U of I and other Big Ten schools went.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, it is, just in case anybody's wondering, your alma mater still does ask you for money after you file a lawsuit against them in federal court. So you have that.
Oh, good.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we sued Illinois. We've also sued University of Michigan, which made my Big Ten heartbeat. We have sued University of Texas, which is my husband's alma mater, Iowa State, and University of Central Florida just a few weeks ago. And we should be doing our next one tomorrow too, but I can't tell you who that is, so they don't find out.
Well, how do you choose what universities you're going to sue?
Sure. Yeah, we look at this. We have members all across the country, and so we file the cases on behalf of our student members because, unsurprisingly, students credibly fear disciplinary repercussions. I mean, we challenge these policies that are on the books because the policies that are there, like bias response teams, like overbroad speech codes, they have both been designed to and have the effect of chilling student speech. Students are put in a position where they don't know what they can get in trouble for. I mean, the University of Michigan's bias response team, when we sued them, was written that the most important indication of bias is your own feelings. And so I could get in trouble on that campus for saying something, even if I didn't mean to hurt anybody. And frankly, even if I did mean to hurt somebody's feelings, it's a public university. That's constitutionally protected speech. And so for the university to come in and try and shut you down by, trying to scare you and intimidate you and calling you in, like you said, to a star chamber, students make a very logical calculus that just out of an abundance of caution, I'm just not going to talk about anything remotely controversial because I don't want to deal with the hassle. And so students just are refraining from those conversations altogether. And it's that restraint that we think is a violation of students' rights. And we've had the Sixth Circuit and the Fifth Circuit say, yes, absolutely. So every school we've sued, they've changed their policies. They've walked them back and said, these were already under consideration. Haha, nothing to see here. But to us, for schools to have that kind of deference, you're caught with your hand in the cookie jar and you're not get in trouble, is to me a big problem with a lot of this litigation because, when people aren't looking, then they're going to backslide. They're going to go back to what they were doing before. And so we want to also send a message to schools. You can't do that. You're not going to get off the hook.
Yeah, that's a key word, deference, because that's what so many who are otherwise right-thinking people have done in the face of these Jacobins is just defer to their demands, defer to their mobocracy, defer to their mafia-style tactics and the institutions they create within the institutions. And it's so important to set not only the precedents you're setting through the courts and through the action you're taking against universities to have that reverberate, but also very much like what Mark Perry over at University of Michigan has done with Title IX actions, is take some of what they've set up and turn that against them to show its sort of intellectual, legal, philosophical inconsistency, and hopefully some of these anti-small d democratic norms and institutions on campuses collapse under their own weight.
Absolutely. I mean, I think about what the Trump administration's education department did when they reached out to Princeton and they said, well, you put out all these statements over the summer saying that you are systemically racist. That's a violation of federal funding. We need to open an investigation into that.
Yes.
And it was just throwing their words back at them.
Yes, exactly. I read an interview you gave with our friend Mark Glennon over at wirepoints.org, and he referenced your sort of your personal history, professional history, and including that you were previously supportive of or involved with the ACLU. And so just a comment on the ACLU, sort of your perspective on free speech and free thought in a free society, and how that initially led you to the ACLU and then led you away from the ACLU.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I was involved with them in college because I believe in civil liberties. My family on my dad's side is they met in an internment camp. My grandparents, that's where they met. The ACLU of California defended Japanese Americans in the Korematsu case that went to the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Deerfield. I mean, I remember hearing stories about the Nazis marching in Skokie in the 70s. And so that's, we will defend the rights of our enemies because someday someone will come for you. That really resonated with me. And so to see kind of the, where they have turned into these days is a little bit sad. I realize, they're making a lot of money now, but I think intellectually, the underpinnings have kind of dissolved, and that makes me sad. But, I think it's exciting that there are a lot of other groups that have sprung up to kind of fill that void, because there are a lot of people who realize that these principles, the civil liberties that we care about, are timeless, and they're not left or right or libertarian or green or anything. I mean, this is for everybody. And so when we start to, be hypocritical about who deserves rights and who doesn't, that'll come back and bite you.
Given your family's heritage, you mentioned the internment camps, the Japanese internment camps. What's your reaction to the hashtag Stop Asian Hate over the last several weeks since those murders in Atlanta? It seems to me, and there was a local issue in Elmhurst that is a good example of this you may have followed. It seems to me that this is just a predicate for people of Asian extraction who are left and anti-Trump to demagogue their race as an issue the same way that other minority groups and special interest groups within those minority groups have done so, yes, during Trump, but have done so for many, many generations now.
Yeah, I mean, I think what is frustrating about the identitarian politics is that, these ethnic groups are not a monolith. I mean, I am a libertarian Asian American. And so, I hear phrases like skin folk ain't kinfolk. So I might have the right skin color, but I don't have the right opinion. And so I don't count. And so, that this, and as you alluded to, I mean, I think some of this this cannot all be traced back to Trump. And I think that's really, that's something that a lot of pundits are not discussing is let's look at what anti-racism as defined by people like Ibram Kendi actually means. They say the remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. I mean, Asians are lumped in with that. Asians are considered a successful demographic. There was a school district in Washington State recently that said that Asians are no longer considered a minority because they've been so successful. I mean, so when ethnic groups, success defined very broadly doesn't match up with the narrative. They're thrown out. I mean, I think, how do you lump in a recently immigrated, Vietnamese or Hmong immigrant with a bunch of East Asians who have been here for generations? It's so silly to kind of put everybody in the same thing, but to just assign blame to conservatives, Republicans, and President Trump, I think is disingenuous at best and dirty politics at worst.
And so do you think Asians are being, attacked more often because of coronavirus, because it came from Wuhan, China?
No, I don't. And I also, I think let's look at where the attacks are coming from. They are not all coming from white Republicans. And that's something that people also are very skittish about discussing. Where are the attacks coming from and what is the motivation? Even, I mean, that shooting that was in Atlanta, he never mentioned race. And so for that to be spun by the media into something that was, this is an attack on Asians and we're being stigmatized and sex trafficked, it's just you're imposing what you want to on the situation rather than objectively analyzing the facts, which would lead you to a very different conclusion.
There were some good commentaries in the wake of that from Asian Americans about the disingenuousness of the left, just as a matter of course, on so many things, right? It's okay to artificially lower our character scores when we try to get into an Ivy League school, but it's not okay over here when you find our race useful to your political agenda, as you were sort of describing. But I wish there would be more leadership, elder statesman leadership from communities during these times too, where somebody like you mentioned, your grandparents in an internment camp, say that some snot-nosed punk. Let me tell you something. Somebody calling COVID-19 the China virus is not the same thing as being put in an internment camp. So get a grip, learn your history, and show some gosh darn respect for the difference between real oppression, real victimization of people, and this phoniness that you're running around trying to claim so you can add some sort of meaning to your existence.
Yeah, there's actually a terrific leader on this has been out in California. There's the Californians for Equal Rights. They were the ones who fought against the Prop 16 amendment out there that was going to strip out the state's the state constitution's anti-affirmative action. Anti-affirmative action. And then also in New York, the Chinese American Citizens League. It's one of the oldest associations in the country. It sprung up during the Chinese Exclusion Acts in the 1850s. They have both spoken out very strongly against critical race theory and saying, a lot of this is being weaponized against us. There's a war on merit, as you said with the Ivy Leagues and Harvard. I mean, there are too many Asians in some of these programs, and so we need to single them out and exclude them from these programs because they don't count. This is yeah, they're being our race is being weaponized, our skin color is being weaponized against us when it's inconvenient. And that's a really ugly thing. And so yeah, there need to be more voices, but there definitely is an insurgent group that is not taking this lying down.
So before we let you go, what else is on the horizon for Speech First, going after these bias response teams, which is noble work on college campuses? What else?
Yeah, we have another lawsuit that we'll be filing tomorrow, so I'll make sure we keep you updated on that. And then I also, in my spare time, have been, I just launched a new organization last week called Parents Defending Education that's going to take on some of the woke indoctrination in K-12 schools. So no rest for the weary.
Yeah, you're going to be busy.
Very good. That's encouraging to hear. Nicole Neily is her name. She's the founder and president of Speech First, among other organizations and other activities, as she was just describing. Nicole, thanks for joining us. Do keep in touch and keep up the good work.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
What can help you take advantage of today's low mortgage rates and save money? Rocket can. You could save hundreds of dollars every month by refinancing with Rocket Mortgage at today's near historic low rates. If your current rate is over 4%, with today's low rates, you could lower your payment by over $150 a month, saving thousands in interest